What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you in the most shocking way? Stay with me, because this story will take you through heartbreak, resilience, and a powerful lesson you will never forget. Before we begin this incredible story, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. Asterisk, my husband and his female colleague disheveled in bed and sent the evidence straight to my lawyer. I still remember the scent of fresh lilies filling the living room. It was a quiet afternoon, and I had just brewed a cup of tea, the steam curled upward, carrying warmth to my tired hands. The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden, breaking the silence. I opened the door to find a neatly dressed courier holding a sealed envelope. My name was written across it in bold strokes of black ink. I signed, my fingers trembling slightly, unaware of the storm waiting inside. When I tore it open, the first thing I saw was a glossy photograph. It burned my eyes before my brain could register it. There he was, my husband. Disheveled. I in bed, and beside him, his female colleague, equally undone. My breath caught in my throat, a knife twisting inside my chest. The room began to spin, the teacup slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, splashing across the lilies that only moments before had smelled like peace. Now they reeked of betrayal. At the bottom of the envelope, a note from my lawyer. 4 words. We need to talk. My knees buckled as I sank into the couch. The cushions that once carried comfort now felt cold and foreign. I closed my eyes, but the image was seared into me. The man I had trusted, the partner I had built my world around, now lay exposed in a truth too ugly to ignore. I wanted to scream, but my throat was dried out. I wanted to cry, but my tears refused to fall. All I could do was sit there, trembling, clutching the papers with both fury and despair. The clock on the wall ticked louder and louder, each second pounding in my skull like a reminder. My marriage was no longer built on love. It was crumbling under the weight of deceit. Yet, in the middle of that storm, something inside me stirred. A quiet voice. A whisper of strength. You are more than this moment. And I held on to it with all I had. I sat in that silence for what felt like hours. The air grew heavier, pressing against my chest as if the room itself demanded I make a choice. I could tear those papers apart and pretend ignorance. Or I could face the truth head on, no matter how much it cut me open. The phone buzzed on the table. It was my lawyer. Her voice was calm, professional, but I could hear a hint of compassion hidden beneath her words. She asked if I had seen the photographs. I whispered yes, though my voice cracked like drywood. She paused, as if giving me space to breathe, then told me she would handle everything. 2 words that sounded both like relief and devastation. I hung up and pressed the phone against my chest. I stared at the ceiling, tracing the lines of light that filtered through the blinds. I thought about the years I had given him, the late nights cooking dinner, the mornings making coffee exactly the way he liked it, the times I had stood by him when his career nearly broke him. Had all of that meant nothing? The thought stabbed me deeper than the photographs themselves. Suddenly, my anger began to rise. It was not a loud anger, not one of screaming or breaking things. It was quiet, steady, almost dignified. An anger that demanded respect for my own worth. I gathered the photographs, slid them back into the envelope, and placed it on the table. Then I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and for the first time in years, I looked at my life as if it were a stranger's. Rows of dresses, shoes, boxes of memories. I touched the sleeve of the red dress I wore on our first anniversary. My fingers trembled, but I did not cry. Instead, I whispered to myself, this is not the end of me. And for the first time since the envelope arrived, I felt the faintest spark of power inside me. A spark waiting to turn into a flame. That night, he came home later than usual. His tie was loose, his hair ruffled, and his smile forced. He greeted me with the same voice he always used, as if nothing in the world had changed, but everything had. I sat at the dining table, the envelope placed neatly in front of me. He noticed it immediately. His hand froze mid-motion, and the color drained from his face. For a moment, silence thickened the room like fog. Then he cleared his throat, tried to sit down, and forced a laugh that sounded hollow. What is this? He asked, pointing at the envelope. I said nothing. I only looked into his eyes, waiting for him to meet the storm inside mine. He reached for the papers, but I pulled them closer. The sound of my voice startled even me when I finally spoke, cold, steady, unshaken. Why do you think my lawyer sent me this? He flinched, his lips parted, searching for words that never came. I watched as his composure crumbled piece by piece, the mask he had worn for so long shattering under the weight of truth. His excuses faltered before they could even leave his mouth. The silence between us grew unbearable, filled only by the faint ticking of the wall clock. And in that silence, I realized something important. I was no longer begging for answers. I was no longer pleading for love. I was demanding respect, and if he could not give me that, then I would find it within myself. I stood up, lifted the envelope, and placed it gently in his hands. Read it, I said softly, though my voice carried a strength I never knew I had. Then I turned away, leaving him to face the weight of his own betrayal. For the first time in years, my steps felt heavy, but they were my own. I walked into the living room, the sound of his breathing behind me uneven and shallow. He opened the envelope. And I heard the rustle of papers. The faint scrape of photographs sliding against one another. A pause. Followed, then a choked gasp, the kind that came from someone staring at their own downfall. I did not turn around. I let the silence work on him. Let the weight of truth sink deeper than any words I could say. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Finally, his voice broke the stillness, low, shaken, almost desperate. I made a mistake. His words trembled in the air, fragile, empty. I closed my eyes, feeling the sting of tears pressing at the corners. But I refused to let them fall. The mistake, that was what he called it, years of trust. Shattered in a single photograph. A mistake. I turned to face him. And for the first time, I saw not the man I once loved, but a stranger. His shoulders slumped, his eyes pleading. But his mouth had no strength left to defend. The truth stood taller than his excuses. I stepped closer, my voice steady, though my heart raced inside my chest. You did not just betray me. You betrayed everything we built together. You betrayed the version of me that believed in you. His lips trembled as if searching for forgiveness, but I had none left to give. The air between us grew heavy again. Yet this time, I was no longer suffocating. I was breathing for myself. I turned, walked toward the window, and pushed the curtains aside. The city lights glowed in the distance, soft and golden, whispering of a world beyond this room. A world that was waiting for me, and for the first time in a long time, I believed I could step into it alone. The glow of the city lights felt like a promise. A reminder that the world was larger than this broken home. Behind me, he whispered my name, almost inaudible, almost fragile. I did not turn around. My fingers pressed lightly against the glass window, cool against my skin, grounding me in the middle of chaos. The silence stretched, thick and unbearable. Finally, his footsteps moved closer, hesitant, dragging against the floor. I can fix this, he said, his voice trembling with desperation. I let out a bitter laugh, one that surprised even me. Fix this? I repeated, my eyes still on the city outside. You cannot fix what you destroyed with your own hands. He stopped in his tracks, the truth cutting sharper than any blade. My heart thudded, not with fear anymore, but with clarity. I realized then that the strength I searched for had been inside me all along. Every memory, every sacrifice, every tear I had shed, none of it was wasted. It had shaped me into someone who could now stand, even in the middle of betrayal, and claim her own worth. Slowly, I turned to face him. His eyes were red, his hands shaking as they clutched the photographs like a confession. I walked past him, calm and deliberate, and picked up my bag from the chair. He called after me, his voice cracking, but I did not stop. The weight of the past no longer chained me. Each step toward the door felt lighter, freer, as if I was walking toward the life I was always meant to have. And in that moment, I knew, this was not an ending, this was my beginning. The night I walked out of that door, I was terrified of what waited for me, but as days turned into weeks, I discovered something profound. I was stronger than I ever imagined. I found kindness in unexpected places, friends who stood by me, strangers who offered words of encouragement, and most of all, the quiet voice within me that reminded me of my own worth. I focused on rebuilding my life. Piece by piece. I embraced work that gave me joy, surrounded myself with people who respected me, and opened my heart to the beauty of life again. Forgiveness did not come easily, but in time, I learned that forgiving him was not about excusing his choices. It was about freeing myself from the weight of anger and pain. And when I finally looked in the mirror, I no longer saw a woman broken by betrayal. I saw a woman reborn through courage, dignity, and hope. Life gave me another chance at love, trust, and happiness, because when one chapter ends, another always begins. The moral of my story is simple: even in betrayal, we hold the power to rise. Even in heartbreak, we carry the strength to heal. And no matter how dark the night may seem, there is always a dawn waiting to break through. So remember, your worth is never defined by someone else's choices. It is defined by the courage you show when you choose yourself. Thank you for listening to this Heartfelt Tales. If it touched your heart, share it, leave a comment below, and remind someone, you are never alone.